Did you change the password?
Good evening. This is Matt Mosley with Big Pig Energy. Joining us tonight, we got a special guest, Mr. FQ Arkansas, Will Carter. Danny's with us tonight. We're missing Coach, missing Greg, missing Brooke, but we also are going to be joined shortly by Mr. Grant Cook. He's joining us again this week. Just want to give a shout out real quick. Our friend B, she's got a sick kid at home. Want to let her know we're thinking about her. Grant, thanks for joining us, man. I know it was short notice getting you back for week 2, but you're filling in and you did a great job last week. And a lot of folks were like, hey, can you get that guy back on the show? So we really appreciate you spending time with us. Will, tell us a little bit about, before we get started, tell us a little bit about what you're doing with FQ Arkansas and running through the A podcast with Sydney Fields.
All right. Well, we recently, I guess we're on episode 9 now with Sydney, started a podcast called Running Through the A. The whole point of it is to kind of have a down-to-earth conversation with current, old players, anybody associated with the University of Arkansas athletics. It's been fun. We're on episode 9 coming up. We didn't have one this week because Sydney has surgery. But I'll give a little teaser on early next week. We are doing our first in-person interview with probably our biggest guest yet. And so we're super excited about that. And keep an eye on that.
Awesome. I mean, that's the one thing with Big Pig and Arkansas Sports Network. We want to try to work with as many different podcasters and videographers as we can. There's enough information for all of us to be able to share and share resources and share connections and really just share our passion for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'm gonna be honest with you. I kind of wanted to skip this week. I'll be honest. The ball game Saturday did not go the way that any of us wanted it. Arkansas went out. Lost 21-19 at home to a group of 5 team from Virginia and Liberty. Hugh Freeze came in, got his first win in Fayetteville Saturday. Razorbacks just came out and looked really, really flat against Liberty. Sleptwalking and when you sleepwalk on an opponent, you're going to get beat. I mean, it's going to happen. They appeared unprepared and to me looked like they might be looking past the Liberty a little bit to LSU. I know Coach Pittman talked about it after the game, talked about it in the press conference yesterday. KJ Jefferson's dealing with a bruised collarbone. That explains some of the zip being off the ball, some of the lateral movement issues he was having with his upper body. But Arkansas finished the game with 428 total yards of offense. Most of that was late. The Hogs have eclipsed 400 yards in total offense in 8 of 9 games this season. And I know that it's been kind of a point of contention with the fan base, this whole deal with Kendall Briles and what the offense is doing from day to day or week to week. KJ, finished the day going 23 of 37 passing the ball. He had 2 interceptions. One ball hit Trey Knox right dead in the hands in the end zone. Trey doesn't close on it, bounces off. Guy intercepts it in the end zone. The second one, bad read across the middle, threw a ball where he shouldn't have thrown it. Had a safety sitting on top of it. Guy caught it, and that was the end of that. Run his INT totals for the season up to 3, which is actually better than what he had last year. So I want to give him credit for that. He took his INT numbers down from last season. He had 2 TDs, but he took 4 sacks on Saturday. He also added 72 yards on 16 carries. I want to hear what you guys say. Grant, I want to start with you. To me, it seems like as a passer, KJ is kind of regressing a little bit. Like the game is getting a little fast for him. And I don't know if that's an injury thing or if it's just him trying to be more of that NFL-style pocket guy. And that's really just not his game.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, we're judging him, human nature. We're judging him off his last performance, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of a what have you done for me lately kind of league. Last week, clearly injured, right? I mean, and so I think that if you look at KJ through the year, and I pulled up some kind of the NCAA stats on where KJ lined up as far as kind of all the major quarterback stats from everybody across the nation. He's like top 20 in everything coming into this week, or I guess going into last week rather. His QBR was like top 10. I think he was number 9 or something like that. So I think that the game, he's fine, right, as far as his ability to throw the ball. I think last week he was hurt, right? And I mean, and it was very clear that he underthrew some things. He was just off. And you know, when you get into the game, you forget about some of these injuries, you forget about some of these things, and you're just going and playing ball. So his mind, I wouldn't say was necessarily on that, but I never played quarterback and I never threw the ball, right? So, and I guarantee you, every time he reared back to throw the ball, he felt something in that shoulder. It just didn't feel right. Yeah. And then going into, you hear what Jaden Hazelwood had to say after the game is Malik threw the ball the majority of the time in practice, right? Mm-hmm. Practice is huge. And this time of year, a lot of it's mental as much as it is physical. And so KJ sitting back there, not seeing that defense, not seeing what the receivers are going to do in practice all week, seeing the scout team run Liberty's defense, I think was probably a detriment, right? And you're going to catch 22 because you can't put the kid in and have him throw 40 or 50 times on Tuesday, 40 or 50 times on Wednesday, and then expect him to go throw 30 or 40 times on Saturday and expect him to be there. I think he's okay. I just think he's got to get healthy, and we're running out of time for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting at the 10th game of the season. I mean, we're at a situation where, for all intents and purposes, their back's against the wall a little bit as far as bowl eligibility. Bowl placement's important at this time of year. We're facing 2 teams. I mean, LSU is coming off a huge win against Alabama. Ole Miss has got Bama this weekend in Oxford. There's no gimmies left on this schedule. I mean, we talked about that last week. There's just not we don't schedule like Alabama and Auburn do and play like a Western Carolina or North Carolina A&T the week before we play our last game. So it's a situation where the way our schedule's lined up, I mean, it's been a gauntlet all season. These guys have been playing beat up, playing hurt. The running game struggled Saturday most of the day. They despite running for 203 yards as a team, the individual numbers were few and far between. Rocket Sanders, the Hogs' leading rusher on the season, put up a measly 73 yards comparable to what he's had. 60 of them was on one run. I mean, I saw a lot of him going backwards, and I know Coach Pittman talked about, and Grant, I'd love to get your take on this. He talked a lot about the twist game that Liberty was running defensively, and they were pushing things. They really took the stretch away. And Rockets, one of his favorite runs is that off tackle stretch run, and they really took it away with a lot of twist blitzes.
And I think that's one of the toughest things to block, regardless of the talent level on the other side of the ball, because it's a scheme thing, right? If you can't get your hands on somebody, you can't outman them, right? And I think that's what we saw, right? You saw a lot of guys twisting and shooting gaps, getting up the field early, right at handoff. A lot of times, I mean, at the point of exchange, Rocket or KJ was getting hit. It seemed like, I mean, more times than not. I think what it ended up being like 14 TFLs, including the sacks.
I think so, yeah, 14.
So. I think we got out quicked a little bit there. No doubt they worked on it. No doubt the coaches were not surprised by what they were going to do. But I think they just changed it up enough for us to have struggles with it. And they saw what was working and we didn't adjust, right? And so I think we did come out in the third quarter. You saw some really big runs, the first few plays coming out. And then it's like they changed something again. They had that ace in their sleeve. Change something, and we just weren't prepared for whatever they were going to change to. It was tough to watch, though. I mean, that offensive line has played 8 great games out of 9, and it just so happened the 9th game was very, very poor. I mean, they're the top offensive line coming into the country, PFF.
They are, and PFF actually, I mean, I was looking at the grades for the individual players. They played an average game comparable to what they've done in the pass blocking part of the game. The run blocking's where they were getting killed. And I think between the combination of the twist blitzes that Liberty was running and then just the overloading that they were doing. I mean, they were throwing 7-8 guys like they were like, look, we're going to dare you to throw the ball. And that's where we had success in the second half. But the thing that is, as a fan, that I get aggravated with is how long it takes us to find that adjustment mid-game. It's like we can't get it done. Like we're seeing it in the first quarter, we're seeing it in the second. We're not making the adjustment between the quarters. We're waiting until halftime. Well, this past week, we're going into halftime. We were down, 17 points. So it's a situation where it's 18 points. But it's a situation where I want to see, and this is the thing that I keep looking at with Bryles is I don't see the in game adjustments as much as I would like to see. I know Coach Kennedy and Coach Pittman were tearing the lineman a new one 3 or 4 times. I mean, you caught them on camera, and I mean, bless their hearts, them boys were doing everything they could do. I mean, we talked about it last week about how good they are and what their rankings are nationally. I mean, we've got the 6th best rushing offense in the country, and we got exposed a little bit. I think they kind of Liberty showed some of like how do you give Arkansas's offensive line some trouble, and you send numbers and send them in bunches in different spots. We kind of got a little bit stunned. I had to go back to last year to find a lower rated run game. A&M, Georgia, Bama, and LSU last season. I mean, and out of those games, we went 2-2. So, I mean, it's proven that we can have a bad running game and still win football games. But I want to see the Razorbacks, specifically the offense. We're talking offense right now. I want to see them make the adjustments mid-quarter, before halftime, instead of just these because you could tell there was a marked difference from going in at halftime and going into the third quarter. Like you could tell there was a huge difference.
And I want to say too, we can win football games when the run game's not there if we have a healthy KJ.
Mm-hmm.
That is the piece, right? If KJ can't throw, we talked about it last week. I mean, Coach Kelly and I said they're going to take away the one thing that we want to do and the one thing we have been through 8 games successful at, and that is give Rocket Sanders the ball or AJ Green the ball and run. And they took it completely away, and KJ wasn't healthy, and no one was getting open. And the 4 sacks, minus maybe one of them, came from KJ stood back there for 5 seconds. The pocket started to collapse, and man, when you're sending 4 or 5 every time, that's going to happen. I mean, you can't block forever, but we got to have a healthy KJ if we're not going to be able to run the ball. And I'll tell you what, this LSU defense, it's going to be hard to run the ball on those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
my question is
good front 4. Go ahead, Will.
My question is though, they obviously knew KJ was hurt, so they're going to rush 5-4 pretty much every time. At what point? I mean, and KJ would drop back and throw 5 yards off several times in the first quarter that I saw. My question is, at what point do you say, all right, we got to try something different here and put Malik in or somebody just to see if we can get something going upfield? Do y'all? My question is, do y'all think that we should have given Malik a chance once we saw KJ was that off because he was that injured?
So this game reminded me a lot of the Missouri State game, just in the pace of it. I feel like it obviously wasn't our game the first 3 quarters. It was not a fun game to be at, that's for sure. I think I'm the bad luck, but everybody was in the stands. They were yelling to take KJ out anyways. It was it wasn't fun. The girl in front of me was kind of miserable. She was getting her child to boo KJ Jefferson. So if that was you, I just want you to know that you're the scum of the earth. But yeah, she had 2 little boys, and every time KJ would miss a throw, she'd tell him to boo. Yeah, but that was kind of I know that a lot of people other than her were kind of like yelling to take KJ out and give Malik a chance. I think that going into this game, since because I believe that Liberty, their quarterback was a game time decision as well, right? Because like all of their team was sick with the flu. So I think that it was probably, our original plan to just run Malik if we were on the 3rd string quarterback. And then as soon as they found out who was starting, they were like, we got to put KJ in and see where it gets us. And then they just kind of let it go way too long. I think that they should have given Malik a chance. I think that he kind of, he proved himself a little bit in what game was it? In the Mississippi State game, because I said this on a few episodes ago that last season, anytime Malik came in, I was worried. I didn't think that we were going to be able to move the ball at all. I thought we were just going to lose yards. I feel like in the Mississippi State game, he kind of made a case for himself, and they should have brought him in.
Well, especially if he practiced all week with the starters, he got the reps and he was ready. What I heard, and I don't know if it's true, and I don't want to be the one that spreads rumors or whatever, but what I saw is that KJ was literally game time decision that very minute before. So I feel like once they saw that he was throwing 5 yards off target, it's like, all right, Malik has been with these starters. He's gotten the reps in. Let's give him a try. Let's see if we can get something going. Let's see if we can flip things around. Because we didn't score that 3 points till the very end of the first half. And so
I think it's a bad look too that they didn't, or that it was a game time decision. The fact that there was the rumor like 10 minutes before game time that KJ was out. And then everybody was like, is there any truth to this? Blah, blah, blah. And then, he started. And then after he started, we were kind of like, was that supposed to be the case? Because this doesn't look right. And especially after finding out that Malik practiced all week rather than KJ. I just, I know that kind of rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way as soon as they came out and said that they did, the team didn't even know who their starting quarterback was going to be. Nobody thought it was going to be KJ just because of practicing.
I'm going to poke a hole in your theory. Okay.
Go for it.
What's the one game that we've watched Malik play where there was heavy blitz in the last 2 years, where he was actually getting harassed? Can you think about it? You got to go back to last season. Texas A&M did the same thing to Arkansas last year. We did a better job with it, but they did essentially the same thing when Malik Hornsby got in against A&M when KJ tweaked his knee. And Malik was not prepared for that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I know they probably worked on some twist stunt stuff during practice during the week with the offensive line. Them being as caught off guard as they were, and the lack of adjustment that I saw, I think they were a little bit surprised with what Liberty brought. Because I went back and watched 3 or 4 of what Liberty's games. The only time I saw them do that in another game was at Wake Forest. So, sadly, Sam Hartman was coming off an injury, and there was that whole dynamic. But I just think you put Malik in that situation. We've seen what he's like under pressure. He played okay against Mississippi State. I don't know that it would have made that much of a difference to put him in. Now, having a healthy quarterback that can throw the football, that's a different conversation. But I'm going to ride my starter. If my starter says he's good, if the trainer says he can go, I'm riding my starter.
Yeah, and he, from living through some of these things and kind of seeing the behind the scenes look, I've got no reason to believe that the coaching staff or whoever wasn't making the best decision that they had at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And so, they want to win. The players want to win. The coaches want to win more than we want them to win. I can promise you that. And so, I think that they were making the decision that they thought was best at the time. Everybody, hindsight's 20/20, right? If we throw Malik in there and, we can speculate on what we think may have happened. But I think the only difference that may have made a difference if we had put him in is that KJ didn't seem like he was a willing runner. So a lot of those times when the pocket's starting to collapse, that's where you see KJ pull a BYU out of his butt and take 2 or 3 hits, roll out, find somebody open, or run 20 yards down the field, truck a safety and get 2 or 3 more yards. Maybe Malik was had a little bit more of an option to run because KJ looked like he was trying to hang in there, didn't want to run, didn't want to take a shot on that shoulder or clavicle or whatever they're calling it. So maybe that could have been a difference. But Liberty knew they weren't going to be able to line up and go straight ahead at us and do anything. They had to pull it out. They thought the same thing against Wake Forest, a Power 5 school, out of the ACC. We got to do something tricky to stay in the game. And kudos to them. I mean, it worked, right? It worked.
I mean, Hugh Freeze, he's at a Group of 5 school in Virginia. That dude's an SEC. He's an SEC head coach. I mean, if he doesn't get a job in the conference next year, it's criminal.
SEC coaches on his staff too, Matt. I mean, Coach Planakis, that was my offensive line coach for 2 years at Arkansas under Coach Petrino, is his tight ends coach. I mean, he's got guys that have SEC experience. I mean, they're not, just some school that is, letting anybody that wants to come onto the team walk onto the team and make it happen. I mean, they've got quality kids and good coaching.
That spread was crazy to me. That 14.5 spread, that made no sense to me.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. I really thought it would have been a lot closer than that. The Hogs, with the combination of what Liberty was doing, Arkansas went 4 of 16 on third down. Their third down percentages in the toilet again. But we were 4 of 6 on fourth down. And a couple of those plays were just gut plays by Matt Landers, gut plays by KJ. AJ Green had a big catch. It was things that they knew they had to do it, and they found a way to make it work. Matt Landers recorded his second straight 100-yard game Saturday, his third of the season, catching 6 passes on 7 targets for 119. I really hate we didn't get him in the end zone Saturday. He has really come on of late and shown what I thought he was going to be this season for the Razorbacks. Jaden Hazelwood, this is another guy that I'm really, really tickled with. He caught 8 passes on 10 targets. I know Danny loves this guy, for 86 yards. He's caught 3 or more passes in each of his first 9 games as a Hog and has 1 catch in 21 games in a row dating back to the start of last year. Trey Knox tied his career high for touchdowns Saturday with 2. Should have had the third one. The last time he did that was the season opener against Cincinnati. Cam Little, he stepped up, got a 50-yard field goal. I know one of my buddies texted me. He's like, "What's he dancing for? Is he looking at the scoreboard?" And I'm like, "That's the second longest field goal that kid's kicked in his career." So 50 yards for a sophomore kicker is a big deal. Despite giving up 21 points in the first half, our maligned, picked on defense, they shut out. Absolutely locked down and shut out Liberty in the second half. I was tickled with the performance the defense put out in the second half.
I just want to make a point that we were texting the Big Pig group chat, and I said that Liberty wouldn't score again in the second half, and I would just like to say I was right. I may have gone like
shout out to Danny for that.
I may have gone
a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
I may have gone 2 for 3 in my picks, but at least I got something right.
2 for 3. Try 2 and 4.
Whatever. I can't count.
It was that second half shutout's the first time the Razorbacks have done that this season, and it was the first one since the bowl game last year against Penn State and Tampa. Shout out to Bumper Pool. Number 10 got the Chris Paul Award as the most outstanding senior on homecoming. Drew Sanders racked up a career high 3.5 tackles for loss on Saturday. He also led the team in total tackles with 9 and got his first sack in weeks. He's sitting tied for 16th nationally with 6.5 sacks. He's tied with Jordan Dominic for the lead in the SEC right now. Joining Sanders on Saturday in the sack parade, Jordan Dominic, Miles Slusher, and Bumper Pool. I really liked what Odom did, especially in the second half. I saw some glimmers of what I saw against South Carolina. Some of the inside-outside blitzes they were doing, they were lining Sanders up on the outside right off the butt of the defensive end, and he would dip out and then cut back in and go right inside between the guard and the tackle. And once they were engaged, he had a straight shot. I mean, he was really getting in there. They were really putting some pressure on the quarterback Saturday. It would appear Odom was committed to dialing up pressure. And I'm concerned with these 2 next conference games that he's going to kind of get away from that, because the LSU game coming up, I mean, we know Jaden could run. We've seen it. I mean, the guy's got afterburners, and we've seen what happens to our defense when the hole opens up and the dude runs and scats for 50, 60 yards right up the gut. You know, I mean, Grant, do you think that Odom's going to be able to keep this up, especially with what we're fixing to get into, talking about what happened Saturday night? Losing a couple of guys. Do you think we're going to be able to do that Saturday? Do you think he's going to go more to that three man with the 3-2 with the 8?
Yeah, I think you have to continue to do what you're doing personally. What I would like to see is continue to use Sanders in the run game or in the pass game. Send him on blitzes. Maybe leave Bumper as a spy on LSU's quarterback. I mean, Coach said it last week. That kid's getting better and better and better every single week, and he single-handedly won the game for LSU against Alabama last week. I mean, he put up a performance that was like none other. But no, I think that we've got to continue to dial up the pressure. Now that stresses the back end. Obviously we're going to have Slusher out this week, untimely for sure, especially with him missing, most of the year with injury anyway. Really need him, but I think that our best bet's to try to get him to flush or sack him, and have Bumper there as a spy and just keep him in the pocket.
Yeah, we want to make sure we recognize Quincy McAdoo, the freshman from South Arkansas, made himself known to fans across the state and to Liberty Saturday with a huge block punt in the end zone. I was kind of disappointed we didn't get on it and get the recovery, but we got the safety and then had a key interception late in the game to stop a drive by Liberty. And I'm not sure if I've got this right, but I believe he's the first Hawk since 2010 to block a punt or a field goal and intercept a pass in the same game. So that, I mean, I personally, it's been a minute since I've seen a guy block a punt and get a pick in the same game. Grant, I know you were Razorback for a long time. When you got a guy like McAdoo, and I know Mbake is another one that they've moved over the secondary to help out with some depth issues, but I've seen this kid play. Some other fans have seen him play, especially folks in South Arkansas and that follow high school football in Arkansas. How hard is it for these guys? I mean, he said, or rumored to have said that he went to the coaches and said, "Hey, I want to make this move to help the football team." How hard is it for you to get these guys on the field? I mean, essentially, you're putting a guy out there that played a little corner in high school, but you and I both know playing corner in high school, I don't care what classification you're playing, going to the SEC, that's a different world, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the rumor I heard as well, right? Hey, I'm willing to jump in here and help out the squad and play defense. But that just speaks to his, football intelligence and athletic ability to, in 2 or 3 weeks, come in and be making an impact at, I would say, probably, and most left tackles will roll their eyes at me, but probably the hardest position in football, period, at cornerback, right? I mean, that is an incredibly tough position to play. And for someone that's jumped in there and he only had 2 or 3 weeks to prepare, and not to mention that he's learned an entire defense in 2 or 3 weeks as well. It's incredible. And he's a freshman, right? So, I mean, the benefit of that is you're going to get to be able to see him for many years to come. And he may have found himself a home on the other side of the ball. I'd be interested to hear what Will and Danny saw from him on Saturday too.
Absolutely.
That's just my perspective, but
yeah, I mean, like I said, the majority of the game, it wasn't like my favorite game to be at, but whenever he was out there making those plays, I'm going to be real honest, I didn't know who he was. I saw a new name on the field and I was like, well, the fact that, this is, I think, the first game that he had played on defense and then comes in and just already makes a difference was huge. It was kind of refreshing to see that. I know that, our team has the talent, has the potential. It's just about getting all of the pieces, to fit together at the same time. It's like one game will have something going for us really, really good, and then the next game it's just something completely different. And we can't just get it all in the same game.
I mean, I don't really have anything to add. I think he balled for like what Graham was saying, for the limited time that he's had. I think he balled. He held his own. I don't know. I'm looking forward to the future with him. I saw a lot of hope in him.
Yeah, I'm really tickled to see what this kid's going to do moving forward, because I know, talking to some coaching friends, talking to some guys that are boosters that live down in Southeast Arkansas, they've even said, like, this kid is just, like, he's sleepy good. Like, he's going to sneak up on some people. They don't realize what they're getting with this kid.
I also think that if he did go, go and offer to help, and he like saw the need for it, I just think that speaks on him a lot as an athlete. I feel like you can tell that. I mean, I can't really think of anybody on our team specifically, but a lot of times you can tell whenever people are either checked out or they just want to do what they want to do. But he, took the initiative. He did what was best for the team, and it worked. So.
No, 100% agree with you, Danny. I mean, for a 17, 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid to walk into the head coach's office and say, hey, put me where you need me. There's no self involved. This is about the team. And then to go out and perform at the level he was able to perform at. Not a lot of 19-year-old kids could do that. If the win wasn't, the loss Saturday wasn't hard enough. I got to touch on this real quick. Saturday night, freshman Anthony Brown, sophomore Miles Slusher, arrested on charges of disorderly conduct. Hate that it happened. Don't like it. I'm going to say this for any young folks that are watching or listening, or any athletes that might check this show out. Nothing good happens on Dixon Street after midnight. If you're underage, keep your butt at home. Dixon Street will get you on it, Grant.
That's Baker Mayfield, right?
That's it. Ask Baker Mayfield. That's all you got to do is call up Bake. Real quick, man. I want to touch on Danny, Twitter hot takes for the week. I'm sure you had some interesting conversations. I saw one from our good friend Gus Fantastico, aka Paul Swinbaum. He said that basically that Coke coming back to the university may have been a curse.
Yeah, it was. As a religious Pepsi drinker, it was Coke, and I credit it all to that. So, surprisingly enough, there weren't a ton of hot takes from the last game. I think that people are just tired of it being the same things week after week. It's just kind of, frustrating seeing these things and nothing changing. Tyler Matlock said, "We will not win another game this season." I'm a bit worried myself. I'm hoping we can at least beat Missouri. So I know that if we lose to Missouri, a lot of people are going to say mean things to me. Clayton Hogball, he said both coordinators need to be looking for a job early Saturday, November 26th, which is pretty much the consensus across Twitter. Any day, like during the game, after the game, 3 days later, I don't know, 2 a.m. when somebody can't sleep, they're all only tweeting about the fact that we need to fire the coordinators. I think that was really it. Like I said, people were kind of quiet this week. It was a lot nicer than usual. Let me see if there's one more. Oh, yeah, nothing really. This Travis guy said, "Is it too early to tell if this is the greatest team in the history of all sports?" Referencing basketball and football, because he's got jokes. So that was great. But that's about it for this week.
I've heard a lot of that, and I've seen a lot of that on Twitter, and here's where I'm at. And I am a vehement Sam Pittman supporter. I love Sam Pittman. I love what he's doing. I love the energy, the fact that he connects with the fan base. But I'm going to say this: the good old boy all shucks routine with the media and with the fans is only going to take him so far. I think but the next couple of games at the end of the season, I think we're going to see going into next year what kind of coach Sam Pittman's going to be long term as a head coach. You got to remember, this guy is only in this as a head coach. This is his third season. Not a lot of guys get their first head coaching job in the SEC. It's rare. It does not happen. Normally they're a coordinator somewhere. Or Sam went straight from coaching offensive line, which is what he had done pretty much for the last 20, 25 years, to being a head coach in the SEC. That's a huge jump.
I'd also like to point out that a lot of people were comparing, Pittman to a lot of the other newer, like SEC coaches, like Brian Kelly, saying that the season he's having is great in his first year at LSU compared to, Pittman's third year here. But those are two different programs. Like LSU hadn't been on the same level as Arkansas, to put it nicely, the last, however long, but like they just won a national championship a few years ago. Like that's not as big of a turnaround that Pittman had to have. We're going to have these seasons. And I think that there's a lot of people that kind of hit the nail on the head with saying that last season kind of put the fans' expectations a little too high. Just because I feel like a lot of those games we got a little lucky. We had Burks that was obviously a game changer, but like I just feel like it did kind of give us all a little sense of overconfidence. And now people are, calling for Pittman's head because we had a.
We also didn't have, I don't want to be the guy that always makes excuses, but we also didn't have the injuries that we're having this year. It's definitely impacting our record right now.
Well, and that's where you got to go back and look at the last three and a half recruiting cycles and look at the evaluation of talent. True. And if Chad Morris and that crew could evaluate talent, they'd still be here.
Right.
Let's just be fair about it.
Comparing LSU and Arkansas is probably not the best thing to do. And somebody can fact check me on this, but I heard this from another source that the previous two head coaches at LSU won a national championship in their first year. So as the head coach. So with that, Brian Kelly is also coaching somebody else's recruits too. So we'll see how it goes there. Not saying the guy's not going to be able to recruit talent to LSU. That is a hotbed of recruiting to LSU, Georgia, Alabama. All of those schools are probably in much better situations than having somebody to convince somebody to come to Arkansas. We're on our way, but that's just the cold hard facts of what we're looking at there. The other thing I want to touch on is so, Will, you mentioned injuries, 100%. We're banged up at a lot of key positions, right? Most notably for half the year in our secondary, which has been the weakest point in our. Do what?
No, I was agreeing with you.
Okay, yeah, it's and the secondary, which has been the weakest part of our defense, right? If we keep Catalan, if Slusher stays healthy, Jaden Johnson, all those guys, they end up staying healthy, we're probably in a lot better situation in most games than we've played this year or our losses. The other thing is last year's team was cram-packed with sixth-year seniors, most notably being Grant Morgan, right? You had a lot of vocal leadership and guys that had been around that should have been rookies in the NFL or in their second year in the NFL, but they were still playing college football. So that's just experience. There's a big difference between an 18, 19-year-old kid and a 23-year-old kid from maturity and everything else. So you're loading your roster with extremely mature men by that point. And there's a physical difference, but most notably an emotional and mental difference between someone that's 18 and 19 and 23. So this team's a completely different team than it was last year. And COVID kind of screwed everything up with all that. And eventually we'll move out where everybody's going to be there for 4 or 5 years. But it's kind of hard to judge his first 3 years. And I understand we got to win football games, but first year was COVID year. Everything was all jacked up. No one knew what was going on. Second year, you had, I think, 16 guys that should have been gone that stayed and played. So you've got a lot of leadership and you've got a lot of experience there. And then this year, we've been hit with injuries and you lose all that. So now we're kind of figuring out where we are. But going back once again to the coordinator deal, I think if we do go 0-3 in the next 3 games, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, someone has to answer to that.
Yep.
Right. And I mean, I'm not necessarily an advocate of the way that works. But I mean, I think that's just what's got to happen. Right.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah.
Grant, I mean, college football is business. I mean, it really is. It's a business of, I mean, there's a lot of money tied up in it. I mean, you think about bowl revenues. Obviously, we get a bigger bowl chunk if we make a bowl game. We don't make a bowl game, we don't get as much money. We get the league minimum, which is what Vandy normally gets, which is, somewhere between $12 and $14 million, which, that's the difference between us showing in the red at the end of the season and being in the black as an organization. Because that money goes to help fund some of the other stuff that goes on in the athletic department along with football team, plus pay some salaries and everything else that folks don't realize. The equipment trainers, the guys that clean up the garbage, the guys that wash clothes, the trainers, the video team. I mean, all those guys get paid. A lot of them do to do their job. So there's a lot of money involved. So, I mean, I'm kind of like you, Grant. I mean, it's not fair, but that is the life of college football. The days of, and I use Danny Ford as a reference because I'm, like I said, I'm the old head in here since Coach ain't here right now. The days of having a guy like Danny Ford be there 5 or 6 or 7 years and having 1 or 2 good teams and then going 4-7 and getting fired is pretty much over. I mean, Arkansas, when we got rid of Chad Morris a couple of years ago, the national media was raking us over the coals. Like, you only gave this guy 2 years. Well, you don't realize what the culture looked like. And then you go look at the stands and there's a 75,000 seat stadium and you got 15,000 people showing up for a big game. I mean, that right there told the story. Then of course you lose to a group of 5 team in Western Kentucky, and that kind of takes care of itself. So we're gonna table that for this week. We'll get into some more of that over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure. I want to get into LSU real quick. LSU 11 o'clock kickoff, ESPN. Right now, LSU's favored -3 and over and under 62. I was a little shocked that the line was as low as it is. I really thought with LSU coming off a big win at Bama, it was going to be like 7 to 10 points, maybe even as high as 12 to 15, but it came in at -3. So Vegas obviously knows something we don't know, because I can't figure out this line on this game, kind of like last week. LSU leads the series with Arkansas all-time 42, 23, and 2. This goes all the way back to 1901. David Basil brought the Golden Boot to life in 1996, and since then the Tigers lead the series 17-8. I'm one of the old guys. I wish we still played this game on the day after Thanksgiving and still played it in Little Rock. Much as I know I hate War Memorial, Grant, I'm sure you're not a fan of either playing down there, but something about that game on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, tailgating at War Memorial. That's the only game I'd want to play down there every couple of years. Arkansas won last year 16-13 in overtime on a Cam Little kick in Baton Rouge for the first win in 5 seasons. And it was the first win in Baton Rouge since 2015. This game's special to Razorback fans for a couple of reasons. I mean, you go back, you got, I call it the sleet game in 2000. Arkansas won 14-13. It was sleeting, nasty, raining, just gross. I was at that one. The Miracle on Markham in 2002. I was at that one. The second Miracle in 2008. I think, Grant, were you there in 2008?
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys call it the second Miracle or what you guys. I know there's different names for that second game. And then you can't forget Houston Nutt's last game in Baton Rouge as a Razorback head coach in 2007, Darren McFadden, the overtime game. McFadden's famous, I got that wood, coach, I got that wood. More recently, the 2011 Razorbacks were in the top 3 in the country. Grant was on that team, took on number 1 LSU. I won't even say the score because I know that one still stings a little bit. over their conference games, though, I was looking at the PFF grades based on the conference games, Grant. Arkansas's got a little bit of an edge in total overall score to LSU, which kind of gives me a little bit of encouragement and makes me think, well, maybe Vegas knows what they're talking about.
Well, so I'll jump back to your comment about 2011. So 2010 at Little Rock was an awesome game. We got kind of, I guess, solidified the Sugar Bowl, first BCS game for Arkansas in the history of the school, beating, Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu and all those guys. 2011, we get up 14-0. And I'll be honest, I thought we were going to beat the hell out of them and then go play Alabama again in the national championship. Did not turn out that way. I think we scored 14 and then they scored like 41 unanswered. So long story short, we were 3/4 of a football game away from playing in the first national championship, unless we got screwed out of it somehow, which, typically happens. Yeah, they would have put like West Virginia or somebody at number 7 in there. But no, I think LSU is a good football team. I mean, they came out first game of the year. I talked about it a little bit. Brian Kelly first year at LSU, a lot of install has to happen. Generally, you don't see this much success when a new head coach comes in, or a new head coach comes into a program, not a new head coach overall, but a lot of things to learn on both sides of the ball, new coordinators, new all that, so I think it's a testament to what the coaching staff is doing, but how quickly the players are picking it up, and they're getting better each week. Generally you don't see a coach come into a new school and go beat Nick Saban at Alabama. So that gives them some credibility there. I'm not sure why the line's set at 3 or 3.5, whatever it is. Generally I think Coach Kelly, their team gets up for one big game a year, and then they lose one they're not supposed to lose. With this game being at Arkansas, I saw, was it Big Game Boomer or whatever on Instagram, put LSU on major upset alert. I would love to read the tea leaves and say that I'm fully on board with that, but I have hesitation based off of their game last week and our game last week. But I'll also tell you this, for whatever reason, it seems like this team in Arkansas we've continually played to our opponent's level. Mm-hmm. You saw it with Missouri State. Then we played pretty well with Alabama, right? You go to an A&M team who we would have been up 21-0, somehow mess around and lose that game. We don't play our game. We play whoever we're playing's game. And so I want to see us come out and do what we do, right? Don't play to LSU's level or play over their level. The other thing is Arkansas and LSU, I do not care if they're number 1 and we are 119 out of 119 or whatever the numbers are. It's always a competitive game, minus the Morris years. But, it is it's always, there's some kind of enchantment around that game where you never, ever know what's going to happen when Arkansas and LSU play each other.
No, you're absolutely right. And a couple of guys to keep your eye on. I mean, obviously, Arkansas fans are going to be looking at Greg Brooks Jr. and Joe Fouché. Fouché really has come on late and played very, very well. Greg Brooks has been a consistent performer for LSU in their secondary all year. And as much as I hate them going back to Louisiana, playing for Louisiana State, I understand why they did it. And my hat's off to them for their time as Razorbacks. They were a big part of this team last year. But a couple of guys on the defense to keep an eye on. Cornerback Jarek Bernard-Converse, 6'1" senior, primarily plays the wide receiver on the field. He is the highest graded DB for LSU. His best performance of the year was against Auburn. And then Mekhi Wingo, 6-foot sophomore in the middle at defensive tackle. He is their highest graded defensive player. And I'm going to tell you, for a 6-foot tall kid, he plays like he's 6'6". He's a very strong, very fast, very aggressive sophomore on the line. His best game of the year was against Tennessee, and Tennessee does, as far as a quarterback, they don't run him as much, but, we've seen what Tennessee can do offensively, and Tennessee just absolutely blasted them in Baton Rouge. On the offensive side, we talked about him earlier. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, 6'3" junior. His best performance this season was against Southern. Put up some huge numbers. His best conference performance was a couple of weeks ago against Ole Miss. Against Alabama, man, he went 22 of 32 for 2 TDs against Bama, especially one late to seal the game, or the 2-point conversion to seal the game. And then wide receiver Kayshawn Butte, 6' junior, plays on the wide side of the field. His best performance of the year was against Florida. He's been kind of slow starting this year. I know he had some issues in the Florida State game, took all his stuff off social media. There was some conversation he might be wanting to put in the transfer portal or just shutting it down, going pro. Against Alabama, he went 7 for 8, seven balls on 8 targets for 51 yards. And then on the tackles, looking at the offensive line, I really wanted to see what they had up front to see what we were going to be able to do defensively. I did not know that they were starting 2 freshman tackles. Will Campbell on the left side, Emory Jones on the right. Jones is the lowest graded offensive lineman they have. Based on the numbers and the information I've been able to get through PFF and some other services, he struggles in pass protection. And PFF's got him graded near the bottom in all linemen in pass protection at 458th out of 561 total or tackles in the country. I really think that Barry Odom's gonna expose that kid and get after him hard on the right side. The thing that I'm concerned with is pushing Daniels out the left side and letting him squirt, because he really likes going to his left in that quarterback RPO run play. Want to give a shout out to Mid Delta Land Management. They're our sponsor of Big Pig Energy. These guys are doing land management and land appreciation services all over the state of Arkansas. Give them a call. They're a big-time sponsor of Arkansas Sports Network and Big Pig Energy. We appreciate them being part of the show. Real quick, before we get into the picks, I want to touch on a couple of things. Give a shout-out to the Lady Razorbacks. Coach Neighbors took them down to Pine Bluff last night. Played UAPB, beat them 70-50. Shot 39% from the floor, 7 of 17 from 3-point, 41% for 3-point percentage. Went 17 of 36 from the line at 47%. Samara Spencer had 15 points. Aaron Barnum had 14. Chrissy Carr had 12. And Sailor Poffenbarger had 12 points and 6 boards. I want to make sure we give a shout out to the ladies for going down to Pine Bluff. They play again, I believe, Friday night in Fayetteville, or is it Thursday night in Fayetteville? I can't remember.
It's Friday morning, I think.
Because Friday morning, because they had 2 games Friday.
10:45 Friday morning.
Yep, and the men played last night. Arkansas went up against North Dakota State to open up the season at Bud Walton Arena. Tip-off was at 7 o'clock. Man, the Hogs looked good starting out. I mean, it was a little slow to get started. Anthony Black, man, I'm going to tell you, that kid, number 0, if you watch that kid the rest of this season, that is a fluid point guard that we've got coming out of Duncanville, Texas. He only scored 3 points. I look for him to get a little more involved offensively as the season goes on. The big story last night was Nick Smith Jr. didn't play. They've got him in a knee protection protocol. I can't really speak to the rumors that I've heard, but I know that they're going to probably set him for a couple of weeks just to keep an eye on his knee, make sure he's healthy. Ricky Council IV, man, I don't know about this kid. He came out of nowhere from Wichita State. That reverse dunk that dude had, that don't happen during basketball games. Like, that's a dunk contest dunk. That's the first time in a long time that Vince Carter, I think, is the last cat that I saw do that in a basketball game. But to be able to take it to the rack against 2 men and have the wherewithal to reverse it and dunk it, I mean, I was done. Like, I'm a Ricky Council fan from here on out, Jack.
The impressive thing, that wasn't a show-off dunk. That was like he had to do that to get the dunk. Like, that was
he did, absolutely. Dunk. That was athletic as all get out.
He's nasty.
And then Trevon Brazil, what about that kid? I caught some flack on Twitter this year. When he committed, I called him sloppy seconds, just kind of being a tongue-in-cheek joke. Got a lot of grief from folks on Twitter. So from here on out, Trevon, if you hear me, brother, I'm gonna call you Old Sloppy from here on out. You played your ass off last night. You got a fan in me, brother. I'm gonna tell you right now. Number 2 is my guy.
Sloppy.
Old Sloppy went for 21 last night. I'm gonna tell you right now, that kid, he's gonna tombstone somebody on a dunk before the year's out. He had one on a rebound last night where he pulled back, was fixing to tomahawk it, and if he'd have just had a little bit more time, he'd embarrassed somebody last night. So I was really pleased to see him. Man, they played 11 guys last night. I mean, when's the last time Musselman played 11 dudes in a basketball game? I don't think he's done it since he's been at Fayetteville.
He's still figuring it out.
Absolutely.
But we're
100%.
also that talented too.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm really excited for just how deep our bench is this year. I think that it's going to be like that's going to be the game changer from where we were last year, because we had a great team last year, but I just feel like you know, a lot of our players last year were just getting a lot of time. Like I know that Note, he'd be on it for the majority of the game and then be off for the remainder, and I just feel like having the bench we do and being able to rotate them out is going to be huge.
And I'll tell you,
7 this year.
Do what?
Can we play just 7
Oh, heck
this
no,
year?
No.
That has been the argument on Arkansas Twitter, Grant, is will Musselman adjust his rotations to fit the number of players he's got? I'm going to be honest with you. I think we're going to see him run 10 guys. I really do. I don't think he's going to be able to run less than 10.
I think we almost have to. You know, he's very much an NBA style coach, right? I mean, that's where he learned. He's a professional coach. I mean, that's where he learned how to coach from his dad and then doing it himself. You know, and I heard early on him say, you know, we're playing, you know, whatever it is, 82 games in an NBA season, and I'm playing 7 or 8 guys, and we're playing 3 games a week. How can we not? You know, how can these kids not play, you know, a 30-game season and be able to play 2 times a week? And that's where, but I think we only had 7, or maybe not even 7, but we had 7 that could play in the previous few years. I mean, this year, don't know there's anybody on the bench that can't play. I mean, legit, like, and would be starting, you know, arguably at any other Power 5 school, but they're that number 8, 9, 10, 11, maybe 12th guy. You know, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how he copes with all that, because he's got more talent than we've ever had, and maybe a lot of other schools have ever had.
Well,
then literally he knows what to do with right now.
Yeah,
he has more talent than he knows what to do with right now, which is
well,
awesome.
He played 11 last night, and note this: Nick Smith didn't play, Mikal Mitchell didn't get on the floor last night either, and Jalen Graham didn't play last night. So there's 3 more guys that have been major pieces to this recruiting and the class coming in, besides the 11 that he played. I look at this roster, and I don't want to camp on a basketball team too terribly much, because we're going to do some basketball stuff later in the year, but there's so many guys on this roster. You legitimately could have 6 or 8 different combinations of 5, depending on how you want to play the game. And every one of these guys brings something a little different. But the one key that most of them have got, they're long, they're athletic, and they're fast. And the one thing that I keep going back to Muss, when he came in and he got hired and he did the press conference, he said one thing. He said, we're going to play pace and space. And so we're going to spread the floor out, and we're going to run people to death. And I really think that he's finally going to have, and I said this, I'm not going to said it last week. I'm not going to lay him with a Final Four bust on this team. I'm just not going to do that. I think it's foolish at this point in the year. But I am going to say, like, we're going to see exactly how good a coach he can be long term, because he's got more talent than he's ever had in his career as a coach. Going back to the NBA, going to the G League, going back to Nevada, he's got more dudes than he's ever had. So I look for him to do something special with this basketball team. You know, a couple things that I was a little disappointed with. We got ran off the offensive boards last night. We only had 6 boards on the offensive end of the floor. Got to do a better job there. We out-rebounded them on the defensive side of the ball, though. I think we had 34 rebounds on the defensive end. And then second chance points. We only had 8 second chance points last night on offense. I want to see them clean that up over the next couple of weeks. But I look forward to Friday night. I know we've got Fordham at 7 o'clock. Look forward to seeing what the men are able to do there. Prayers for Nick Smith, Arkansas, man, Razorback Nation, Hog Nation. You guys need to go light a candle, talk to your preacher, get out to holy water, get out to snakes, whatever it is you believe, and start praying for Nick Smith. Get that knee healed up. Hey, Will, we want to try to represent all of the fan base, even the folks that live up in the hollers in Northwest
Whatever
Arkansas.
it takes, huh? Whatever it takes.
Hey, if it's 5 of them in a room and they bust out a box of snakes, as long as I'm not there, they can do whatever they want. They do it when I'm there. I'm gonna knock a hole in the wall, running out.
Let's get Nick back out there, huh?
That's a
whatever
fact.
It takes.
That's a fact. All right, so we're at the end. We're at the end of the show. We're going to go ahead and we're going to go through Coach Kelly's weekly pick'em. We got a couple of folks missing tonight. I've already got their picks. Just kind of give everybody a stat update of where they're at. Coach Kelly is 45 and 19. Greg's tied at 45 and 19. I'm in third at 42 and 23. Danny's dragging up fourth at 36 and 28, and Brooks 14 and 24. Now, note this: B has got the best winning percentage out of the whole group. Now, she's only been picked 18 games, but she's still got the best winning percentage. So, shout out to B. Grant, I think you went 4 and 2 last week. So
4 and 2, yeah,
4 and 2. That's respectable. I went 4 and 2 myself. You and I were battling for first place last week. I think Brad was 4 and 2. The rest of them were all 2 and 4. You think they start listening to us? I mean, even Coach went 2 and 4 last week.
I'm mad because I pick against Clemson every week, every single week, and the 1 week I didn't. It's fine. Everything's fine.
You don't, and I'm gonna say the same thing I said to Coach last week. You don't pick against Touchdown Jesus in South Bend. You just don't do it. It's bad juju. All right, so we're moving into week 11. We got 6 games. I'm going to read the game. We're going to start with Danny. We'll go to Will, we'll go to Grant, and then I'll go last. And I'll go ahead, before we go to Danny, I'll read what the rest of the 3, we got B and Coach and Greg's. I've got their picks. Alabama, coming off a loss down in Baton Rouge, has got to travel up I-22 to Ole Miss up in Oxford. Alabama's an 11.5-point favorite in this game. I was a little shocked at the line. I know Lane Kiffin's going to use that as bulletin board material with his guys this week. Over and under 63.5. Coach has got Bama. B's got Bama. Greg's got Bama. Danny, what you got?
I'm going Ole Miss. I think it'd be funny to watch Alabama lose 2 in a row.
Bama.
Will.
I gotta go Bama.
You got Bama.
Grant. I think they cover too.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bama as well. Saban, I might eat my words, but Saban doesn't lose 2 in a row. He's lost 2 in the season for the first time in a long time. He don't lose 2 in a row.
First time since 2009 or 2010, he's lost 2 games in the season. Lost to South Carolina. Lost Auburn. Who was the other one? Auburn in the game in
2010. You said
that was in 2010. It's the last time he's lost 2 in the regular season. Hasn't lost 3 since his first year in Tuscaloosa.
Wow.
He's gonna lose his 3rd on Saturday.
It's hard to be an Alabama fan, isn't it?
My Alabama friends, I live in Birmingham, Alabama. I got, shout out AB, got some friends on Twitter, got some really good friends. Bill Flowers played at Ole Miss with Eli Manning. He's a real good friend of mine. We went to high school together. I told Bill yesterday, I said, man, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen this year. I think Alabama's sleepwalking a little bit. I think they're down. I'm hearing a lot of things about the coordinators not getting along. They're not getting along with Saban. There's a lot of yin-yang going on. Saban was chewing out Bill O'Brien on the sideline. You don't coach in the NFL like Bill O'Brien does and take an ass chewing from Nick Saban like that and stay around very long. I think he's gone at the end of the season. Alabama fans are fed up with Pete Golding. I think Alabama's falling apart. I think they're going to lose to Ole Miss. They're going to win on Saturday. And I'll be honest, I think Auburn might sneak up and actually get them in Iron Bowl. I'm just saying, Cadillac's got them boys believing down there. You saw what they did last week. They come real close to getting Mississippi State.
Auburn, okay.
So I got Ole Miss.
One hell of a prediction.
So second game on the schedule, and this one's one close to my heart. I've got some kids I work with that play for Maryland. Maryland at Penn State. Penn State's favored by 12, minus 12, over and under a 57. We got Coach with Penn State, B with Penn State, Greg with Penn State. Danny, what you got?
Maryland.
Danny.
Why do y'all think that I have such a bad record? It's because I have beef with all these teams. I hate Penn State. I know they're gonna win. I can't do it.
Grant?
Where is the game?
It's in Penn State, Happy Valley. So
Yeah, I'm gonna go Penn State on that
it's
one.
11 o'clock kickoff. So
Yeah, we're all going Penn State.
you going Penn State, Will?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
You guys just wait.
I'm gonna tell you
I
why
like
you're
it,
wrong.
Danny.
James Franklin always loses
okay.
to somebody he's not supposed to lose to. Maryland, Mike Loxley's got Maryland playing good football right now, offensively and defensively. I think it's going to be a lot closer than 12 points. I got Maryland by 3 on Saturday. Third game, Gus Malzahn and the UCF Golden Knights go down to New Orleans to play Tulane. Coach has got UCF. B's got Tulane. Greg's got UCF. Danny, what you got?
I'll go UCF.
I got Tulane.
Tulane.
Just because I have some friends that went there. I'm doing it for them.
Roger that. Grant?
I will go. I'm gonna go UCF.
Smart pick. UCF's going to beat the fire out of Tulane Saturday. Tulane, I think, is a little overrated. They're a good football team, but I think they're a little bit biting off too much. I mean, UCF's playing good football right now.
Yeah, I fully prepare on getting that one wrong.
Yeah, Tulane's going to be a good one.
Too many close games.
Yeah, it's a close point spread too. I'll be surprised if that game's not even by the end of the week. I'll be honest with you. I think it's going to be a pick'em. UGA at Mississippi State. I know my Mississippi State friends up in Nashville, and I got a couple in South Mississippi and Hattiesburg and down in Gulfport. They are really feeling themselves after this Auburn game. I had 3 of them actually tell me they believe they're going to beat the fool out of UGA Saturday, the Battle of the Bulldog. And I'm like, dude, y'all are smoking your own growings or something. There's no way you're beating Georgia Saturday. Coach got UGA, B's got UGA, Greg's got UGA. Danny, who you got?
Mississippi State.
Oh my God.
I was hoping you were going to say UGA so I could go Mississippi State.
You got lead paint. You got lead paint in that house in Virginia or something. You've been eating lead paint chips.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it's painting the shoe.
Will, who you got? Buddy?
I was gonna UGA.
Georgia. Greg or Grant?
I said it last week and I'll say it again this week. Until they give me a reason not to pick them, I'm picking Georgia. I mean,
yeah, UGA's favored by 16.5 in Starkville. I'll be honest with you, it may be more than that. It might be double. I really think that Georgia's going to open a can on Mike Leach.
Here's the deal, right? So we talked about it last week. UGA's missing some key defensive pieces. Mm-hmm. If they can stop Tennessee missing the pieces that they missed, crazy things happen in this conference, but it ain't going to happen with Georgia.
Another game, I'm picking this one for my wife and some of my friends, the Auburn folks. Texas A&M at Auburn. Auburn's favored by -2 in Jordan-Hare Saturday night under the lights. Over and under a 49.5. Coach got Auburn. B got Auburn. Greg picked the Aggies. I ain't fair. I got to talk to Greg about that. He's not living right. Danny, what you got?
Legally, I can't pick A&M, so I'm going to go with Auburn.
What does that mean? I got
story. Will, that's an off call, off show conversation.
Legally, all right. Well, I'm going to go with Aggies. I'm going with the Aggies here. I think Cat was going to say the winning for Alabama.
Yeah, I think Cadillac is bringing some of that old time spirit back to Auburn. with it being at home. If it was at College Station, I'd probably first road game for Cadillac.
Ooh, I forgot about that.
A lot of issues and a lot of things to coordinate on a road game, but with it being at home, they almost pull it off against Mississippi State, which is a hell of a lot better offense than what A&M's bringing in. I got to go Auburn.
And I'm gonna tell you, do not discount Auburn's ability to do something stupid. Okay, they are enamored with the Cadillac Williams persona and the go Cadillac, or break it Cadillac, or whatever it was that Ron Golden said back in the day. I think Auburn's going to win this game. I think Texas A&M's absolute hot garbage. A&M may not. I'm not saying they may not lose another. They may not win another game. They should win one more against UMass. UMass is just god awful.
Is Cadillac calling the plays over there?
I am not sure.
No.
I don't think so. I don't think he's calling the plays. The only coach coordinator that got
Cadillac
kept was
is
the
a,
defensive coordinator.
It is a spirit animal for everybody
That's
on that
okay.
team.
He's a rah-rah guy. I mean, if you watched him Saturday,
He's a hell of a rah-rah guy, though.
I'm surprised he doesn't have a sprained wrist with all the clapping he was doing Saturday.
The camera was on him so much with his white towel around his neck or swinging it around his head or whatever was going. He lived and died on every play for 60 minutes.
And there's something to be said about a coach like that, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said about the Auburn kids because, I mean, the body language that they had at the end of the Arkansas game, and then to see them come out and they looked like they were a little bit confident, like they maybe had a little mojo going. And the more he would get amped up, the more amped up they would get. Now, longtime football guys have been around the game a long time know that you can't do that every week. It ain't going to work every week. At some point, the Jimmy's and Joe's part's going to take over and their program is going to kick in. But I think being as it's a night game, being that I know that the Auburn family or, Auburn Jesus or whatever they call it, these folks will show up. I don't think they're going to have 85,000 strong in Auburn Saturday night. I haven't seen where there's a lot of tickets up for sale. I still think it's going to be a hell of a crowd Saturday night in Auburn.
I will say this. The transition, the way the kids played at Auburn under Harsin, and I know we're not here to dissect Auburn football, but it reminded me of the Morris years here. And then you inject Barry Lunny, and I'm not saying Cadillac Williams, Barry Lunny are the same thing, but same passion for the program. With Barry being an ex-player, and we go almost down there and pull it off against LSU, that year when Coach Lunny's in the driver's seat. They just kind of got the players got reinvigorated to play the game, and so I think that's what you're seeing at Auburn right now. But you're right. Eventually, that motivation it burns hot, but it don't burn very long, right? So. We'll see, but yeah, I think Auburn wins it this weekend for sure.
I just think with Auburn, with them playing at home, Cadillac being the coach, the fans are going to be into it. I think honestly, I think they may beat Texas A&M by 2 scores. I just don't think Texas. I think they're like inherently broken. Like that team's broken.
Looking at next year.
Exactly.
All the recruits that they recruited in, number one recruiting class, recruited, whatever you want to call it. They're waiting for next year to all that.
Absolutely.
This year's they've chalked it up. They're done. They're moving on.
They've hung it up, and I just don't see the will to. It's you're going through the motions at this point with that team down in College Station. The game that everybody cares about, Louisiana State, 11 o'clock Saturday morning, ESPN. I hate the game time. Shout out Danny for we'll talk about this next week, but she made the call last week, got the Ole Miss game moved to a night game. Shout out Danny on that.
Thank you, Danny.
Called up the SEC offices and called down the fire on them and got them to move the game. LSU's coming into Fayetteville off a huge win against Alabama. Arkansas, of course, we know what happened last weekend. LSU's favored -3. Over and under a 62. Danny, give me the winner and a score for the game.
LSU wins 36-28. It's because I'm bad luck and I'm going to be there.
Will.
36-28. I'm not picking LSU to beat us. I'm going to say Arkansas wins 36-28.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Grant.
going with.
Man, I can't pick against my boys.
Exactly.
And that's very Homer of me. But I can't pick against them. I think that we'll probably get the offense going a little bit next week, or this week rather, this Saturday. I don't think the offensive line shows up and lays an egg again. I'm taking Arkansas. I think it will be 34-31 Hogs, and it's going to come down to another Cam Little field goal to win it.
There we go. A walk-off.
Walk off.
What was the
I would
score
like
again?
to.
I like that.
What was the score again, Grant?
34-31 Hogs.
What'd you say?
34-31.
Okay, sorry,
34, yeah.
it popped out and I didn't hear you.
I would also just like to let the record show that this is the first week I've ever picked against Arkansas. I said that I wouldn't the entire time we were doing this, but I'm having such bad luck. Maybe it's reverse psychology. Okay, maybe this is what it's going to take for us to beat them.
So Coach has got Arkansas picked 30-27. B picked Arkansas 38-35. So the field goal thing is kind of dancing around. Greg picked LSU 45-21. I'll be honest with you. I'm concerned on both sides of the football. The health of KJ Jefferson. I know the offensive line is going to bounce back, but LSU's defensive line is head and shoulders better than what Liberty's got. I don't think Brian Kelly got where Brian Kelly is by being a fool and not looking at last week's tape and instituting some of the things that Arkansas saw against Liberty. I think Arkansas will be a lot more prepared for it than they were against Liberty. LSU, I think our guys are going to be hyped for the game. It's the boot game. The fans are definitely going to show up, even though it's an 11 o'clock game. I don't think we'll have a sellout, but
and it's going to be cold.
It's going to be cold Saturday morning. You also have bumps up against the start of muzzleloader season in Arkansas. So hunting season, bad football. You just never know with the crowd what it's going to do.
It's modern gun season, Matt.
Modern? I can't keep straight with y'all on the gun seasons anymore.
It's modern gun, which is a bigger deal than muzzleload. So, there's going to be some guys at 11 o'clock game that are still sitting in a tree stand.
Sitting in a deer stand somewhere trying to find Bambi. See, our modern gun in Alabama doesn't start till the week before Thanksgiving. It's a youth weekend this weekend here. So, man, I hate doing this because I hate these guys. Like LSU is one of those teams I grew up hating. I got to pick the Tigers. I just think they got too much. I think they got too many athletes, too many dudes. I think Brian Kelly is that much better of a coach than what we've got right now. I got LSU 35-14. I just think LSU's defense is going to be the factor in this game, and then the fact that our defensive secondary now with Slusher being out due to suspension, that's one more piece that we're going to miss. We're too weak on the back end. I just think Jalen Daniels is gonna feast on us. That's my fear. I hope I'm wrong. I hate picking against them, but Coach Kelly kind of challenged me at the beginning of the season to think with my brain and not so much with my Razorback heart. So,
did you say that he picked? Did you say that Coach picked Arkansas though?
He did. He did pick the Hogs. He did pick the Hogs.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's a kiss of death, Danny. So I gotta go. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. I want to pick them, but I just can't see, based on what I saw last week, what I've seen over the last couple of weeks, just inconsistencies on offense, not being able to get going. I spotting a team, especially an LSU, if you spot them 21 going in at halftime, you're gonna have a really hard time winning a football game.
You ain't gonna you won't beat anybody spotting them 21. Mm-hmm. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Matt, don't feel bad. It's the logical pick, man. It's the logical pick.
Breaks my heart.
I don't know how to do
it.
I think with my Razorback heart, as you called it. I don't know. I can't figure that one out yet.
Don't worry.
Okay.
On my
Man.
website, I'm gonna pick Arkansas because that way I'm right either way.
Bless your
So
heart.
it'll be
Bless
fun.
your heart. Bless your heart. All right, guys, I appreciate it. Will, man, thank you for being
Yeah.
on the show tonight. Guys,
Yeah, that's fun anytime.
go follow FQ Arkansas on Twitter. Check out Running Through the A with Will and Sydney Fields. Great podcast. They're doing some awesome stuff over there. Appreciate you being a part of the show. Grant,
Appreciate y'all
thank you
having me. It
again
was fun.
thank you again, Grant, for being on here tonight, filling in, man. I appreciate it. We've got a lot of good feedback from our viewers last week. They like having you on the show. They get tired of listening to me and coach all the time. So it's good to have somebody else in here to talk to. So Danny, appreciate you. Be careful going to Fayetteville this week. Hopefully you'll bring home a victory. I know you being in there is kind of like the kiss of death, but
Hey, maybe it's like every other game we lose. So we lost Auburn last year. We won the bowl game. We lost Liberty, and now we're going to beat LSU. It'll be fun.
I am going to say this: stay the hell out of Bud Walton's that Friday night. Don't you go to that basketball game?
Yeah, no, I already told my friends that we can't do much Friday night because I was like, I'm not going to be dead on Saturday morning.
There's
It's gonna be
also
great.
a
I'm bringing-
soccer game.
Ooh,
Right.
Yeah, there's a
There's
soccer
also
game this weekend.
yeah.
That's right.
I'm
That's right.
I'm bringing my my roommate and one of my coworkers. They're in town for training, so they're there all week. But they've never been to an SEC football game, and so I was like, yeah, we're gonna go. So we got really good seats.
yeah.
Somebody was nice enough to gift them to me. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm excited. I've never been to an LSU
Awesome.
game, so.
Check in with us Friday night. We'll be live on Twitter. We'll have a space after the basketball game. Check back with us Saturday after the football game. We'll have a post game space. Hopefully, this one will be a little more friendly than last week. Looking forward to seeing what happens Saturday with the Razorbacks. We'll be back here next Tuesday night breaking down the game, the game Saturday, and then previewing the game against Ole Miss the following weekend. Appreciate you being a part of Big Pig Energy. Thank you for checking out Arkansas Sports Network. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram.